Now that we have seen how to design a couple of pages and how to add the common functionality, like in the case we have done it for the top navigation, right? And how to create a base class where we gonna have all the common functionalities over here, right? Now this page class, the way that we have designed in data driven, we have initialized so many things. If I talk about some more common functionality that can be accessed throughout our pages, is something called as logging, right? We need to implement logs, some property files, which we would be needing it for our object repository, where we'll be storing all locators. Then the configuration, where we'll be storing the browser information, the test site URL, environment, right? All these things, and any configurable element will be storing it in the config properties file. Now basically these are some of the things that we have already seen in our the very in the very first project, that is the data driven project, right? Now I would request you that if you have not gone through the data driven project, the very first initial project where we have already discussed about all the basic utility initialization. So I would recommend you to first go through this and then you can return back and watch the page object model, right? Because whatever that we have done over here, we have initialized loggers, we have initialized properties, we have initialized extent report, right? The mailing part, report ng, all these things we will be doing in the page object model itself. And there is no change in the code that we have written in the data driven in the test based class. The same thing we're going to do it inside the page class. So what I'm going to do, whatever thing that we have seen in the page class over here, I'll gonna like in the test base over here, I'll just gonna copy these stuff as it is, and I'll gonna implement in the page class. So I'll be taking up so many things from the initial data driven that we have designed, and I'll be merging up those things in the page object model framework. Right. So although I'm going to explain it to you step by step, what all things that we would be needing, like we'll be needing the properties file. So we have created two instances of properties, one for config and one for OR, right? File input stream is to load these files. Then we have logger that we have initialized for log4j, right? Excel reading, we would be needing an Excel reader file, the same file that we have kept it in the utilities package, right? So all these utilities will be required: the Excel reading, extent manager, monitoring mail for sending emails, right? Some of the common utility methods that we have created for capturing screenshot. There are a couple of methods that we have created. One is for capturing screenshot. This is common for all our test cases. Then we need a common data provider when we'll be reading the test data from Excel sheet. So we would need this data provider. So I would recommend you to just go through this particular section of a data-driven framework and how I have implemented it from scratch. Just go through those things, and then you can implement the same thing in the page object model as well. Then some things are related to the run mode, setting up the run modes for your test, and how these things will be done. I'm going to show it to you practically once we implement in the page object model as well. Right. So utilities, I'm going to copy it from my data-driven framework as it is. I'll copy the entire package and I'm going to paste it to my src main Java. So we're going to have all these classes available over here as well. So test util is throwing some error. Let me see. It's actually extending the test base class. So here it will actually going to extend the page class, right? Because the page will be the base for all these common utility methods, right? And so instead of calling it test util, we can also change the class name to utilities, right? Which is looks like a more meaningful name, right? So this will be utilities for all our pages, right? So then we'll again go back to the page class, and we'll be initializing the Excel reader. So the Excel reader will gonna accept the path of your Excel sheet. Excel sheet will be inside SRC test resources. So these are the folders which you're gonna find it over here: SRC test resources, and then com w2a and Excel, and this is the Excel file that will be loading. So if I take the path of this Excel sheet, just give me a moment. So it will be like SRC test resources, and then we have this path as well. So com dot, just give me a moment. So this will be the path of our Excel sheet, right? And after that, we will be creating an object of extend reports, and we actually get this object from the extend manager class from the get instance method. If I go to extend manager over here, then we are getting the instance by calling this method, saying extend report extend equal to ex, extend equal to new extend report. So we are actually getting the object from here, and this is where we are actually creating an extend.html file, and all the configuration is read from reports.config, which is again inside src test resources extend config. So resources, then we have just give me a moment, let's see, src, and then we have test, and then we have resources. So we would need this extend config package as well over here. So in the resources, I'm going to add one more package. I'll name it as extend config, and here we'll be keeping all the configuration that we're gonna take it from here, the very first project. There's extend config, and there's the report config. So I'll paste it over here. Right. So this is like the name. You can give the report title a name over here, and then different format of extend report, right? So we'll not be doing any changes to extend config, as in till the time it is not required. But before that, I need to add this resources. After resources, we have com, then w2a, then Excel. Sorry, then we have the extend config, right? So this is the extend manager file, which should be responsible for getting the object of extend reports class, and which we'll need it over here, right? And then we have like extend test, then the browser. So these information we're gonna get it. We'll actually gonna load it inside the constructor of our page class, right? So what all things that we would be needing? We need to mention, see, if driver equal to null. Right now the driver is null, so we first need to load our properties file. So property file contain the information of our browsers, so like config property and OR property. So we're gonna copy it from here, and up till here we will be loading the config and OR properties. So go to page class. The very first thing we're gonna do is to load config and OR properties, right? So config and OR properties, again, it will be inside SRC, then test, resources. com w2a and then properties. So src test resources com w2a then properties. And same thing, we're going to do it for OR properties, right? So after both the properties files are loaded, what next we need to do? We need to set up some environment for our browser, right? So this environment will actually gonna help us when we will be reading the system environment from Jenkins, right? This will actually gonna help when we will be setting up a filter in Jenkins where we can select the browser. So filter, I'll just gonna write a comment over here. This is for Jenkins system environment, or let's say Jenkins browser filter configuration, right? So this is, we'll be doing it for Jenkins. We'll be checking if the browser selected in the filter of Jenkins is Chrome. It should actually gonna launch Chrome. It should set the browser property to that particular browser. So this information is actually retrieved from Jenkins, right? And then we'll be setting up browser. Otherwise, if nothing is taken from Jenkins, so browser will be treated from our config property file, where we will be mentioning in config property what browser that we'll be working on. So browser equal to Chrome. So by default, it will not take Chrome, right? So then after that, let's see what else we have done. So if the property browser is Firefox, it should launch Firefox. Else if it is Chrome, it should launch Chrome. So I'm gonna take this thing as well over here and let us set up properties for these browsers. So else if Chrome, we're gonna give this thing for Chrome, Apple Chrome options, right? And then after that, after Chrome, we have IE. So we're going to do this for IE, right? So once the browser is launched, it should navigate to the test site URL. So I'll navigate to the test site URL and implement all these things. And in our page, we're going to do up till here. Right, so all this configuration are almost same that we have done in the case of our test-based class, which we have designed in our data-driven framework, right? Now, what else? If you see, we have added some keywords as well, right? So these are some common keywords, like we will be needing them a lot while clicking an element, while tapping an element, while selecting a drop-down list, right? While checking the presence of an element. Verifying equals is something like we have implemented a very simple way of soft assertion, right? So although there are other approaches to implement soft assertion using some of the listeners, right? But this is something is required for our extent report. We have specifically implemented this. So these are some of the common keywords which we can take from our base class, and same thing we would be needing in our page class of page object model, right? Because all our business pages will be extending these keywords itself. They would be needing all these keywords. So I'm going to implement them as it is over here. So where the constructor is ending, after this, I'm going to add all the keywords over here, right? We'll change this to utilities. Right, so all the common keywords implemented. Right, now where the error is, it's over here. All right, what else apart from this? We still have some error. I'll remove this. All right, all the errors are gone. So we're done with logs, we are done with properties, right? We have implemented Excel, we have implemented implicit and explicit wait, right? We have what else? Right, and we have implemented extend reports. Although we haven't seen so far how we're going to use them in the page object model, but this is what we need to initialize it very in the initial stage while setting up a framework. And this is all a one-time effort. Once these things are designed, then we need not to design them again and again. Right, once these keywords are implemented, you whenever you want to click on any element, you just need to call click and provide the locator. If the locator is for CSS, it will gonna do driver.findElementBy.css and gonna read the property from like the locator value from or.get property, because in or.get property will be storing all the locator and it will gonna perform click on it. So this is like a code optimization. You need not to write this code again and again while clicking on an element. You'll just be saying click and give the locator. That's it. And rest work will be done with the help of the methods that we have created over here. So the code will be optimized very much when you'll be using these keywords. And the best part is that with while calling all the I mean while calling each keyword, the test logs will also be maintained. I mean, the steps will be maintained in your reporting part as well. Right. So this is what the best purpose of maintaining these keywords.